James Carter, a 35-year-old African-American entrepreneur from Austin, Texas, was no stranger to hard work and success. As the founder of Carter Tech, a thriving software company that had recently secured a multi-million-dollar funding deal, James decided it was time to celebrate a significant milestone in his career. The celebration called for a meaningful purchase, an elegant luxury watch symbolizing years of perseverance and triumph over obstacles. On a sunny afternoon, James traveled to Houston's renowned luxury mall, a destination filled with exclusive stores catering to the elite. Dressed casually in a hoodie and jeans, James felt a sense of satisfaction as he stepped into the bright, marble-floored space. The mall exuded an air of wealth and sophistication, but for James, it was merely another stop in his journey. He had often found himself in such settings, navigating spaces where his accomplishments sometimes preceded him, but his appearance often elicited skepticism. Despite these occasional experiences, James maintained his confidence. This day was meant to be a personal celebration, an opportunity to select an item that reflected his achievements. However, even as he browsed, James couldn't ignore the lingering stares from the mall's security personnel. Two guards stood near the entrance of the high-end jewelry store he entered, their eyes occasionally darting in his direction. James brushed it off, focusing on the elegant timepieces displayed in the glass cases. The moment should have been about joy and accomplishment, but the tension in the air was undeniable. It was a subtle reminder that no matter how much he had achieved, he couldn't completely escape the biases ingrained in society. Unbeknownst to James, this shopping trip would soon become more than a celebration. It would challenge not only his patience, but also his belief in justice. James wandered through the high-end jewelry store, his eyes scanning the gleaming display cases filled with luxury timepieces. Each watch represented a blend of precision and artistry, a perfect symbol for the journey he had taken as an entrepreneur. He asked the store associate detailed questions, comparing designs, materials, and warranties, wanting to ensure his purchase reflected the significance of his milestone. The store associate answered politely, though their tone hinted at a subtle hesitation, as if unsure whether James truly belonged in such an exclusive space. Meanwhile, James felt a growing discomfort. He couldn't ignore the watchful eyes of the mall's security team. Two guards stood near the store's entrance, their attention locked on him. It wasn't overt, but their occasional whispers and quick glances in his direction were enough to make James feel scrutinized. Still, he tried to focus on the moment. After all, he had earned this celebration through years of hard work, innovation, and perseverance. After spending nearly an hour considering his options, James decided to take his time and think over the purchase. As he turned to leave, security guard Trent, a tall, imposing figure with a stern demeanor, stepped forward and blocked his path. "Excuse me, sir, we've received reports of suspicious behavior," Trent said flatly, his tone carrying an accusatory edge. James froze, his mind racing. "Suspicious behavior?" he asked, stunned. "I'm just shopping." The interaction escalated quickly. Despite James's calm explanations and request to speak with a manager, Trent insisted on detaining him, claiming he was scouting for theft. Within moments, James found himself in handcuffs, his arms restrained as a small crowd gathered. His celebration had turned into a nightmare, and the humiliation of being treated like a criminal stung deeply. James sat silently in the dimly lit courtroom, the weight of the past few days pressing heavily on his shoulders. The humiliation of being handcuffed and paraded through the luxury mall in front of gawking shoppers replayed in his mind. The prosecutor, a sharp-suited man with an air of confidence, began presenting the case. "Your Honor, the defendant was acting suspiciously in a high-end store, showing behavior consistent with potential theft," he stated, his tone laced with conviction. James listened, his face composed, but his emotions boiling beneath the surface. He couldn't believe he was being portrayed as a criminal for simply shopping. The prosecutor continued, relying heavily on the testimony of Trent, the security guard who had detained James. Trent described James as agitated and uncooperative, painting a picture that couldn't have been further from the truth. James clenched his jaw, determined not to let anger cloud his judgment. When his turn came to speak, he stood, shoulders squared, and addressed the courtroom with calm authority. "Your Honor," he began, his voice steady, "I am not a criminal. I am James Carter, founder and CEO of Carter Tech, a multi-million-dollar software company based in Austin. I was shopping for a watch to celebrate a milestone in my career, not planning a theft." As he spoke, James produced his business card and company documentation, placing them on the desk before the judge. The courtroom fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. James went further, speaking not just for himself, but for others who had faced similar injustice. "This isn't just about me. It's about a system that too often judges people by appearances rather than actions. Today, I stand to defend not only my dignity, but the dignity of everyone who's ever been wrongfully profiled." The tension in the room was palpable as his words resonated deeply. As the courtroom proceedings came to an end, a heavy silence filled the air. The judge, an older man with a face weathered by years of difficult cases, finally spoke. After reviewing the evidence and testimonies, the court finds no basis for the charges against Mr. Carter. The case is dismissed. The words hung in the air for a moment before James let out a small breath of relief. Justice had been served, but this victory wasn't just for him. It was a step toward addressing a much larger issue. The dismissal of the charges was met with murmurs from the gallery. The prosecutor looked visibly unsettled, his confidence shattered by James's poised and factual defense. Meanwhile, Trent, the security guard who had initiated the ordeal, sat stiffly, his face flushed with embarrassment. He refused to meet James's gaze, knowing his actions had not only been wrong, but unjustifiable. Outside the courthouse, reporters and onlookers awaited James. The incident had already gained significant attention online, with videos of his arrest and courtroom testimony circulating widely. James walked down the courthouse steps with his head held high, his composure radiating strength. When asked by a reporter about his next steps, James paused before responding. "This isn't just about clearing my name," he said firmly. "It's about holding those accountable who perpetuate these biases and ensuring this doesn't happen to anyone else." True to his word, James filed a civil lawsuit against the mall's management, citing wrongful arrest and defamation. He announced that any damages awarded would be donated to organizations advocating for equality and systemic reform. The experience had transformed James, sharpening his resolve to fight injustice. As he left the courthouse, he knew this moment was bigger than him. It was a chance to make lasting change. The courtroom victory was just the beginning for James Carter. Walking out into the crisp afternoon air, he felt a mix of relief and determination. The ordeal had been deeply personal, yet it was part of a much larger issue that resonated far beyond the luxury mall in Houston. The videos of his wrongful arrest and powerful courtroom speech had gone viral, sparking nationwide conversations about racial profiling, bias, and accountability. James knew his story wasn't unique. Countless others had faced similar humiliation, often without the resources or platform to fight back. Determined to turn his experience into a catalyst for change, James announced a press conference the following day. Standing in front of reporters and cameras, he addressed not just his own ordeal, but the systemic problems that had led to it. "What happened to me at that mall wasn't an isolated incident," he said, his voice firm but impassioned. "It's part of a larger pattern that affects Black men and women across this country every day. We're judged by appearances, not by our actions or our worth." James outlined his plans to advocate for reform, starting with a civil lawsuit against the mall's management and the security firm. He pledged to donate any compensation to nonprofits working to combat racial profiling and provide legal support for those who faced similar injustices. His speech struck a chord, inspiring others to come forward with their own stories. Over the following weeks, James's name became synonymous with resilience and advocacy. He participated in panel discussions, met with community leaders, and used his platform as a successful entrepreneur to push for change. The watch he had initially set out to buy now symbolized something much greater: a commitment to justice, equality, and the belief that no one should be defined by prejudice. James's fight for justice ignited a ripple effect far beyond what he could have anticipated. His lawsuit against the luxury mall and its security team gained significant traction, placing pressure on corporations to reevaluate their policies on racial profiling. As his case gained national attention, James became a vocal advocate for systemic change, using his platform to amplify the voices of those who had been silenced or ignored. In the months following the courtroom victory, James partnered with civil rights organizations to host workshops on implicit bias and equity training for businesses. He also established the Carter Initiative, a nonprofit dedicated to combating discrimination and providing legal aid to victims of wrongful accusations. "This isn't just about me," James often said in interviews. "It's about building a system where everyone is treated with the respect and dignity they deserve." The watch James had initially intended to purchase became a symbol of this journey. Rather than buying it immediately after the incident, he decided to wait until his civil lawsuit concluded. When the settlement finally came through, with the mall agreeing to pay damages and implement anti-bias training, James purchased the watch as a marker of not just personal victory, but collective progress. Social media, which had played a crucial role in amplifying James's story, continued to buzz with updates on his advocacy work. His resilience inspired countless others to share their own stories of discrimination, creating a wave of awareness and accountability. Through speeches, interviews, and his nonprofit, James transformed his experience into a platform for meaningful reform. As he clasped the luxury watch around his wrist for the first time, James felt a deep sense of fulfillment. It wasn't just a token of his success. It was a reminder of the power of perseverance, the importance of standing up for justice, and the impact one voice could have in sparking change. Months after his court victory, James Carter's name had become a symbol of resilience and justice. But he knew the work was far from over. The incident at the mall, though humiliating and infuriating, had opened a door for meaningful change. James had turned his pain into purpose, dedicating himself to ensuring that no one else would endure the kind of mistreatment he had faced. The Carter Initiative, his nonprofit organization, quickly grew into a powerful force. It provided legal assistance to those wrongfully accused, funded educational campaigns about implicit bias, and partnered with corporations to implement comprehensive diversity and inclusion training. James was invited to speak at universities, business conferences, and community events, where he shared his story and highlighted the systemic changes needed to combat racial profiling and discrimination. His efforts gained the attention of lawmakers, leading to meetings with state and federal representatives. James lobbied for policy reforms that would hold businesses accountable for discriminatory practices, calling for stricter oversight of security protocols and increased transparency in their operations. His proposals inspired legislative action in several states, where new laws were passed to protect individuals from unjust profiling in public spaces. Despite the progress, James never lost sight of the personal impact of his journey. He often reflected on the moment he stood in that courtroom, declaring his identity and demanding respect, not just for himself, but for everyone who had been wronged. The watch he had purchased after his settlement became a quiet but powerful reminder of that moment. Every time he looked at it, he saw more than a piece of luxury. He saw a symbol of his fight for dignity and equality. For James, the fight for justice was never just about him. It was about creating a world where everyone could walk freely, without fear of being judged for the color of their skin. James Carter's journey from humiliation to triumph left an indelible mark, but the story didn't end with his personal victory. Instead, it became a beacon of hope and change for countless others. In the months following his case, the ripple effects of his courage and advocacy were undeniable. Social media buzzed with stories from people inspired by James to speak out against their own experiences of racial profiling and injustice. His courtroom stand had turned into a movement, one rooted in the belief that dignity and equality were non-negotiable rights. The Carter Initiative expanded rapidly, reaching communities across the country. With funds from his lawsuit settlement and donations from supporters, James launched programs aimed at educating businesses on bias prevention and helping individuals navigate the legal system. The organization became a resource for those who had been wrongfully accused, providing legal aid, emotional support, and a platform to amplify their stories. At the same time, James balanced his work as an entrepreneur with his newfound role as a public advocate. Carter Tech thrived, its success serving as a testament to James's resilience and talent. His growing influence also opened doors to speak with lawmakers and corporate leaders, where he pushed for structural reforms. From legislation targeting racial profiling in retail spaces to nationwide anti-bias training programs, James worked tirelessly to ensure that meaningful change was not just a promise, but a reality. Though his schedule was busier than ever, James remained grounded. He often took time to mentor young entrepreneurs, sharing his story and encouraging them to dream big, despite systemic challenges. Every time he glanced at the watch he'd finally purchased, it reminded him of his mission, to fight not only for justice, but for a world where everyone, regardless of appearance, could thrive and be respected. The story of James Carter serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of standing up against injustice and advocating for systemic change. From his experience, we can draw several key lessons that apply to our everyday lives. First and foremost, it highlights the need to confront bias, whether it's in the workplace, public spaces, or personal interactions. Recognizing and addressing these issues is the first step toward creating a more equitable society. This story also emphasizes the power of resilience and self-advocacy. James's ability to remain composed under pressure and use his platform to speak out against discrimination inspires us to respond to challenges with courage and purpose. When faced with unjust treatment, it is vital to know our rights, stand firm in our values, and seek avenues to hold wrongdoers accountable. Additionally, the story reminds us that individual actions can lead to collective change. By sharing his experience and taking tangible steps, such as founding a nonprofit and pushing for legal reform, James turned a personal ordeal into a force for good. We, too, can use our voices and resources to support marginalized communities, promote inclusion, and build a culture of respect and fairness. Ultimately, the lesson is clear. Justice begins with awareness, grows through action, and thrives when we stand united against prejudice. James Carter's journey from humiliation to triumph teaches us about the power of resilience and standing up against injustice. It reminds us that our voice can spark change, not just for ourselves but for others too. If you were in James's position, how would you react? Would you choose to stand firm, fight for justice, and challenge the system, or stay silent to avoid conflict and minimize personal risk? 2. Leave a comment with your choice, 1 or 2. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Together, we can continue sharing stories that make a difference.